Hello. Today we're going to talk about ways to change your documents from like ready to print, like documents you want to put on paper and give to students, to documents that you're going to share with students for them to read on the screen or use on the screen. Okay? And I am going to focus on like readings, but this would just as much apply to like worksheets and such. First off, the big differences between paper and the screen are paper costs money, ink costs money, colors cost money, right, when you're printing. And we read on a page that's portrait, right? The computer, the screen is probably landscape, right? And we don't have to worry about printing costs. We don't have to worry about ink costs or the cost of color ink or anything like that. So the first thing we're going to do with our document is switch it. We're going to go to File, Page Setup, and make sure whole document, if you've got sections, make sure whole document is selected and make it landscape. And then there's no need for margins, right? We want to keep some so people, you don't want anything to go off the page or anything weird like that. But I like to just make it, smaller because more space we can use, right? Now, these lines are way too long, okay? So the next thing we're going to do is fix that, because a basic rule of thumb is that on the screen, the smallest font should be 16 point. Okay? Yes, they could use the browser to zoom in, or they could use here to zoom, right? But that pushes it off the page. That's not as good as you giving them something that's appropriate from the start. Okay? So we're going to work with styles, and please use styles. This title style was done by hand. You can see it still says normal text over here. We don't want that. So I'm going to clear the text, clear formatting. I like to do that just to be safe. But then I'm going to tell it this is title style. Okay? Now, that's good. You need to use styles it's easier to fix things or change things later for the whole document, and you'll see that in a minute. But also for accessibility. A screen reader, if you have a student who needs a screen reader, when it says title here, the screen reader sees that. It knows that. It can read that differently. Okay? It does that differently from if you just bold something. It sees bold and it says, it uses a stronger voice or something, but it doesn't know it's a title. Okay? So use the page style, use the paragraph styles. Okay? So now I don't like the line spacing here. I don't think we need 2 for a title. And I don't like space before the title because it's the first thing on the page, right? And I'm going to use 12 there. Okay, obviously think about right, if you're indenting, maybe you don't need any space between paragraphs. If you're having a bigger font, which we're going to do next, maybe you want, if you have, more line spacing with a bigger font, maybe you want more space between the paragraphs. But we are going to change this because it's just too many. Okay, this line alone, tools, word count, right? 122 characters, that's too long. That's more than even recommended just for a regular native English, high school, college educated people reading at grade level. That's on the too long side. So maybe you want to leave it with no columns. I put columns with a question mark because maybe you want to leave it with just one column. Well, then maybe make it at least 18 or 20 point. Okay, 18 point. Now we have, right, I missed the period at the end, but we'll add it. So now we have 85 characters, 86 characters. That's okay for people reading your grade level in high school. Okay, 85, 86, 90 is getting a bit long for high school students maybe, but it's still okay. But for me, for my English learners, or if you've got younger readers, we probably want to do 2 columns and have shorter lines. Okay, but first let's update this paragraph style. What's our line spacing here is, okay, I did this earlier, 1.67 and 12 and 12, right? So I'm going to leave that like that, and I'm going to go to normal text, update normal to match, and see the whole thing changed. Okay, so now you can see leaving it like this. I put this note in earlier, end of page 1, portrait. So the first page, when it was portrait and 12 point, went this far. And this part here was the only thing on the next page. But now, because we went landscape and we made it bigger, it's like this. Okay? So, I mean, this is easier, so you can fit almost the whole page in there to read. But if we want to add a column, we'll select the whole thing, right? If you don't care, like I want to leave the title separate, so I'm going to select the text. If you don't care, if you want the title in the columns, you can just select everything or just not select anything. Then go to Format, Columns. You don't have to, more options, but I want to show you. 2.5. I like to turn on the line between the columns. Okay, so this is a bit, right? That's a bit not a long enough line. It's only 6 words and 39 characters. That's a bit too short. But I can always change this to 16 point, which is the minimum, remember, that you want to do. And then I'm going to update to match again, and everything changed to 16 point. Or should have changed. Come on. I guess select the whole thing. Right? Select the whole thing and then again go and update to match. Okay? And now you've got more. You've got about 44, 45 characters here. Still a little bit short, 43. Okay. A little bit short, but okay. But I still find 2 columns is good because we can fit it basically the whole thing on the screen. You can see that I've got the entire reading on the screen for this page. I can read the whole page without scrolling. Okay. Next thing is to put in some color and some comments. And I'm going to start with the comments. Haggling. Okay. So I'm going to put in my ESOL, English learners, don't know what haggling means. Okay. So to save time, I'm not going to put in the whole thing here, but I'll put in the definition over on the side and comment. Okay. So put in comments to help students. It could be definitions. It could be, thought questions to, hey, what do you think this sentence means? Whatever makes sense for you. But now notice how it's highlighted, right? So depending on your content, depending on what you need, use color, right? For me, I might highlight all the nouns and all the verbs, all the helping verbs, or maybe all the words showing time, maybe, or maybe all the prepositional phrases. Whatever makes sense for your content. And then come up here to highlight and set a nice color. Try not to use red or green because colorblind students, that might not go well with the black text, right? But don't be afraid to use this color. We don't care about printing. We're not using ink, expensive color ink, right? So don't worry about it. Use the color to add educational benefit to your pages, right? So that's it. That's let me come over here, and so that was it. That's the color, the comments. We talked about the columns, the fonts and the margins and all, right? Just basically realize that you're not using an 8.5 by 11 paper anymore. So don't treat it like an 8.5 by 11 paper anymore, right? Think about the screen that your students have and how you can get the most. Because I should show you here, actually this one, that's weird, something's, okay, this one, it's a little bit, we've lost a little bit of text here. I'm not sure why. I think, because of the 1.67, the line spacing's a bit bigger. If we made the line spacing a little smaller, we can get the same amount of text. This would still be up here if we used a smaller line spacing, but it's whatever works for your students, right? So that's it. I hope this is helpful. We looked at landscape, smaller margins, bigger font, line spacing, color and comments, right? And maybe columns if it makes sense for your students. All right, thanks.